Okay, I guess I'm live. So here's the deal. Rebel Moon is out, and it's exactly what everybody was afraid it was, but it looks cool. So having said that, I'm gonna re-break Rebel Moon. Let me do it straight to camera. What am I doing? But as far as what I'm doing, this is literally just trying to get Rebel Moon to work because it's so much of a. We've seen Star Wars Episode 1. We've seen Star Wars. There's sort of a history of Episode 1s. I'd say probably Star Wars, or not Episode 1, Episode 4. So I'd say Star Wars: A New Hope is, you know, the OG version of Star Wars: A New Hope. I keep saying Episode 1, it's Episode 4. Sorry. Yeah, but I really got the vibe that the first 45 minutes of this movie was Star Wars: A New Hope. But mostly the boring parts, like where the droids are walking around in the desert. So, yeah, huge sci-fi fan if that wasn't clear, but obviously I didn't have high hopes going into this. I talked to my writing partner, and I was like, are you going to watch this movie? Because, you know, we tend to try to discuss movies, and he's like, no, I saw how IGN rated it, and I decided I wasn't going to put myself through it. And I was like, yeah, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. Let's just see how healthy the stream is. Stream looks good. Oh, it's giving me an error. Keyframe frequency of 4 seconds or less. See if I can fix that real quick. Keyframe interval. We'll do 2 seconds and see if that does anything. Hopefully that won't kill my stream. Not that anybody's watching. So let me go ahead and currently keyframes are not being sent often enough. That's probably ingestion errors can occur with sizes. Yeah, you know what, let me change it to a different keyframe size. Nope, don't exit. Output, stream, keyframe, interval, 1 second manually. How about that? We could do constant bitrate too, that might be helpful. Let's just do that. See if that helped my stream at all. Can I close this error? No. Okay. So here we go. So I gotta still knock out the rest of the things, but I can put them up. So let's. Do I have any clothespins close by? No, I don't. Okay. Let me get some clothespins. Here we go. So I'm thinking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 3 acts, you know, the middle act is the biggest act. Isn't that the move? I'm definitely gonna recut this after the stream ends and make it its own thing, if that wasn't clear. Because, you know, showing your work is one thing, but there is a lot of boring time. I'm the first to admit that. So maybe we'll put this here. There we go. So how was your holiday? Everybody had a good time? Everybody you got what they wanted? For me, it was a fire truck. Actually, for me, it was console tape, and I got what I wanted. So, and I got a really awesome label maker. Something like that, maybe. But Rebel Moon, what is there to say about Rebel Moon? I think it's easy to argue that the reason Rebel Moon exists is because the Snyder cut of Justice League was well received by a very loud group of people. I think that's not speaking out of turn. Was it worth giving Zack Snyder a blank check and 2 movies? I don't know. That's a Netflix conversation to have, and I don't work at Netflix currently. Yeah, it's just you know, it's really, as a sci-fi person, as a fan of sci-fi, it's really frustrating because sci-fi, for a lot of reasons that are probably not worth getting into, is really hard to pull off well. Part of that is, you know, you're building a whole different world that's not our world, and part of that is you need sort of visual effects and special effects and makeup and stuff to make everything, you know, people buy it, people appreciate it. Oh, we're out of tape on that one. So like, that was always the big trap with those Star Trek shows, is they were limited by budgets basically. And so sometimes the storytelling, you know, succeeded even though they were clearly on a sound stage in front of a painted backdrop and people were in costumes pretending to be aliens, and sometimes it didn't work. As always, I'm a big person that story is king, and so even if you have terrible effects, as long as you're telling a satisfying story that, you know, touches people, affects people, man, this tape is garbage. Then you're fine. You're okay. But when it doesn't is when you're in trouble. And on that note, you know, did this Zack Snyder movie give enough satisfying story to make it worth people's time? I'd say the internet is more or less saying no, although, you know, there's some Zack Snyder fans out there that are definitely fans of this. Weirdly, my mother really liked it. Her favorite movie is Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, if that's any context, which I really enjoy too. We actually talked about that today for family stuff, but oh man, I don't know if I can have space for this. Let's see. Cards, and so let's just do cards here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We're good. We're fine. Let's just do this. This is the stuff you don't see, is when people are struggling to put up their really janky charts. By people, I mean me, and by janky charts, I mean this. And it's been a while, so I'm rusty. But I just ran out of time is what really happened. So, you know, I love sci-fi, I love space adventures, but I also am just a sucker for good story. And so, you know, 4 people having a conversation in a room, a story maketh. Is it better or worse than a beautiful sci-fi space opera? You know, I'd prefer a sci-fi space opera, but they're hard to come by. And even the greats, you know, George Lucas, Luc Besson, all those people, did I say it right? All those people have had good ones and they've had terrible ones. Roger Corman, you know, so it's a real luck, I feel like, is the real limiting factor. Whoop, almost just KO'd my board. I feel like luck is really the limiting factor when it comes to really expensive sci-fi epics. I mean, the Wachowskis, I feel like every 5 years get a real shot at making something incredible. And, you know, the stuff that they make that I feel like is good doesn't really get its day in court. And the stuff that they make that is just incomprehensible also doesn't really get its day in court, because they're just, you know, they're as messy as the rest of us, it seems like. So I guess in this ramble, I'm just trying to stall for time, vamp for time, but I'm also trying to say that, you know, like, you can appreciate when things go well, but you also got to acknowledge when you screwed up. I feel like that's important. The learning process. It sounds amazing to so much else. Yeah. There I am. That's exactly my point. Although, at what point do you just say, you know, throw it in the campfire and start again? Like, I honestly don't know. But yeah, I totally agree. Brooke to himself. All right, so let's put some stuff up. 40. I don't. Let me pull up the story wheel so that I can look at it, because I'm that rusty. Okay. Actually, I probably have those cards, don't I? Are they right here somewhere? Yeah, you know what? They're right here. Isn't it great when you're unprepared? Good example. Is this the weaknesses? This is the... I'm going through my cards because I have... this is the chart. Okay, this is not it. We could do that, but I mean, it's Zack Snyder, so if it was either going to get made or not going to get made. So let's just go ahead and throw up some stuff, because if you've never seen Dan Harmon's Story Wheel, you know, it's... Do I have a picture of it? Yeah, here we go. I'm gonna do the movie version and not the TV version, because usually I do the TV version. So you, in a zone of comfort. Oh, I got too bold. Okay. All right. So first chunk is you. Has that made the screen? I can't tell. I got too many screens open. Yeah, you can see it kind of. Need. But they need something or want something. And I think if I remember, it goes here. So we got A, B, go. Enter an unfamiliar situation. Let's see, which I believe goes over here. D is search. Adapt to it. E is find. Find what they want. The handwriting is getting worse, I can already tell. I think I'm standing on a lav too. Yep. That was E, so this is F. Honestly, the exasperation is helping. Let's see, we got you need, go, search, find. You need, go, search, find. Take, pay the price. I just saw the bald spot on the back of my head. That hurt. G is return. Back to where this started. H is change, now capable of change. This is his thing from, so actually I think it goes here. Let me see here. There's 8 and there's 6 rows, so it's, oh, math is, so 15, 30, 45, 60. I could have done 8 rows, that would have made more sense. But we're going to do 6. So we're going to say need is going to be down here. Go is going to be 1, 2, 3. Let's just do 8. What am I doing? I'm being an idiot, and that's the day we're having. All right, so we'll do a stripe here and a stripe there. We'll just do 8. I didn't mean to do 8, but we're doing 8. Okay. He did it when he was doing Channel 101, which was his film festival at I think Rob Schraub's house is what it was. And the idea was every month you do like a short film as like a TV pilot that's, episode 101. And he was finding that the directors and the filmmakers were having a lot of trouble figuring out how to do like, traditional storytelling. The visuals would look good, the gags would be good, jokes would be good, but the actual story would be really unsatisfying. And so he basically just redefined the Joseph Campbell, story, basically. Let's see if this is actually making sounds. Yeah, we got audio, cool. And so this is basically just Joseph Campbell, the hero's journey kind of stuff. There's different ways to do it. There's seven sequences, or Save the Cat does 40 cards, which is ironic because I counted 41 scenes in this movie. So argument to be made, Zack Snyder intentionally or unintentionally did a Save the Cat breakout. But ultimately, it doesn't really matter how you outline it. You either tell a satisfying story the way audiences expect a satisfying story, or you don't. That's kind of what it is. And so the hero's journey is very much Western storytelling, and there's other ways to do it, but I found the hero's journey to be pretty useful. So here we go. We have 8. So we have you, character in a zone of comfort, or hero in a zone of comfort. If that wasn't clear, let me just make sure I can see it. Yeah, I can. Cool. And we have need. Character needs something or wants something. This is basically, you establish the character, you establish the world, you establish things that are essential to start the story. Then you find that the character needs something because they're not perfect. They need a change in their life, either by force or by want, and you just start knocking it out of the park that way. Then you go on to the journey. This is usually the Act 2 moment that everybody talks about. Most people call it Act 2, Act 2 being the big act, because usually it goes, skinny act, double size act, skinny act. That's the 3-act structure if people talk about that. But again, you're not putting acts, unless you're doing TV, into the document anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But you go in the unfamiliar situation, that's where you round up the troops, which is going to be a real problem for this thing because the rounding up seems to be the whole show, whole movie. But you go on your adventure of discovery, of self-discovery, but also usually literal discovery. This is why, Star Wars is so Joseph Campbell-y, because it very much literally is the hero's journey. So you go in the unfamiliar situation, so this whole experience is going to be the unfamiliar. Then you go into search, because once you're in the unfamiliar situation, now you have to actually get back to what you were going for. You have to remind yourself, okay, I'm actually trying to accomplish something. That's when you do the search. This is still sticky, yeah. And then you go into find. You found what you were looking for. You got what you came for. Again, if you're rounding up the troops, this is when you have all or most of the troops. This is going to be a problem for this story. Then you have, once you find, take, pay the price. There's a price for something. Usually mythologically, there's literally a price in lives or in gold or in a trade or something. So there's a cost for everything. If you want to get something, there's a cost. That's what this is. Return, going back to the start. And then changes, so the return and the change are kind of the final act, the finale, the everything comes to a head. So return is when you go back now that you've accomplished what you're going to go out to accomplish and apply it. And change is literally applying the change. Now capable of change, you've learned something. You've changed as a person. Your friends and people who went on this journey with you have changed as a consequence of the journey you've taken. You have more wisdom, you have more insight, you have more escalation in your life. Even cliffhanger movies like Empire Strikes Back, for instance, that's a change, because at the beginning of the movie, they were on the run, but they had a scrappiness about them. By the end of the movie, Luke is missing an arm. He figured out who his dad was, real devastating consequences that could not have been foreseen in the beginning come to fruition. So change is important. Yeah, again, if you want to call this, Rebel Moon, just the first half of this, search. So they went all the way to the search. So they just got everybody, and now they're search. So they're just starting to basically be on their proper adventure, if you want to call Rebel Moon the first half. But even then, I don't even know. I'm not even sure if I buy that. Although now that I'm looking at it, it does seem like it works better. Anyway, let me knock out what we're. Where are my pens? There they are. Did my audio recorder die yet? I feel like it probably has. Oh, it's acting like it. Yep, it's gonna die. That sucks. Okay, well, whatever. We're just gonna have to get what we recorded then. That's what lack of preparedness gets you. I feel this. I see the screen going black. That's what's such a bummer. Oh, I have a USB cable. What am I doing? I'll just put a battery in my pocket. Come on, Matt. Bad behavior. All right, don't die before I put the battery in my pocket. Don't die before I put the battery in my pocket. All right, plugged in. And we have a USB battery. Yeah, we're charged. Okay, cool. Not prepared, but still prepared, you know? Okay, now my pants are falling down. So here's what we have so far. I wrote down all the scenes as I rewatched it, and honestly, watching it the second time and basically treating it like Mystery Science Theater 3000, very satisfying. So 40 divided by 8 is 5. So we're gonna have to move these cards around, obviously, but this will kind of work, I feel. So I'll talk about these and then I'll start writing stuff down again. 6, 7, 8. Usually I would do some character work and some idea work ahead of this if I haven't mentioned this already, but it's Zack Snyder, so it's gonna get made. Like, he sold it to Netflix. Off of what? I don't know. He bragged about having notebooks and notebooks full of concept art. So maybe that. I don't know. I wasn't there, but concept art seems like a real guess. If I was an executive and Zack Snyder brought in concept art, I'd be like, okay, but like, how's the script look? Like, can I take a look at the script and make sure it, you know, it's distilled enough that a regular person who has eyes, ears, and can speak the native language of what you're doing, it makes sense to them? Like, I would like that. So let's do it. So we have, first up is narration in space. We have voiceover. I think it's the robot, which is Anthony Hopkins, which is hilarious to me. But it goes so far as to do the Star Wars, after the narration ends, it tilts down onto a planet. Did George Lucas own that? No. Is it a weird steal? I would argue yes. Number 2 card, Space Farmer. This is where we find her farming in like a wife beater and overalls with a horse with like a thing on its face, but it's clearly a horse. And she has a charged moment with the loser guy whose name I forget, who Mystery Science Theater 3000 version of it that we did last night, we called him a word that I'm not going to use on this thing, but it means guy whose wife leaves the bed kind of guy. But yeah, Space Farmer charged moment. That's the second thing. She really likes dirt for some reason, which will be revealed shortly. Card number 3, in the hut. She's hanging out with her hut. We learn a little bit about her. She has like an adoptive father who's like, hey, I'm glad you've been here for 2 years. You're really starting to become part of the community. And she goes, yeah, whatever. The big standout thing in that moment, I felt like, was the fact that it was like a dirt hut, and yet it had like the whooshing electronic door. That made me giggle. And the new dad is like, what about that hot hunter? He wants to show you the buck he just killed, the snow buck or whatever. And she's like, I don't really care. Because, you know, marriage is a big deal. Number 4, they're in the longhouse, which is like the main house with the bald guy who's like Big Daddy. So there's New Daddy and Big Daddy. I'm not using the real names of the characters because honestly, I'm not going to remember them well enough. But they're in the longhouse. The Big Daddy talks about fertility, both in the land, but he was also basically saying everybody needs to go home and do it and have kids because that's important. He ain't wrong. If you're a farming community, it's nice for farmers to have a bunch of kids because then you can have them work the land. Sure. Number 5, she's back in the hut with New Daddy, and she tells New Daddy she's not interested in Hot Hunter because it seems like the whole community thought she was going to go, you know, share a bed with the Hot Hunter guy, and it seems like she just went home. The Mystery Science Theater 3000 that me and my brother did, This is where he started what was, I think, the best secret narrative in the story that doesn't exist, in my opinion, which is that every time she's off screen, she's off doing it with somebody, and then when she comes back, she had just come back from doing it, which is hilarious because the amount of times she comes back from doing it allegedly, and it's the one farmer guy who she had a charged moment with just now, he's the one she's talking to. So it's like she's off doing it, and then she has her like guy who's friend zoned. I don't know. This is too whatever it's called, heteronormative. But honestly, the secret narrative that is not revealed in this story, that she's constantly just doing it when she's off screen, is kind of hilarious, because that would be a much more interesting story. Yeah. Anyway, so. In the hut, so she's not interested in the hunter. The next day, she's farming, and the young girl that we've seen a few times goes up to her and is like, "Hey, I heard the hunter was making noises last night. Was that you?" And according to my brother, when we were joking, he's like, "See, I told you. There's your evidence." Clearly, I think the vibe is, oh, the dog's barking because he's throwing a fit. He had a tough holiday too. There's a cat outside that has decided that the dog is just, yeah, that's the crying because the dog wants to go outside and hang out with the cat. Anyway, the cat's hilarious. Yeah, so the young girl goes, did you get in his bed? And she's like, no. And then they look up and there's a big sci-fi dreadnought ship, which is bad. And she immediately runs in hunting boots. She runs away for reasons that are, it's a big deal. And then so everybody sort of is on their way to the longhouse to discuss what they're going to do now that the, Empire shows up. Anyway, so then Big Daddy holds a conversation in the longhouse again, and he's like, we need to protect ourselves, blah blah blah. And then the annoying guy she had a charged moment with, the cowardly guy she had a charged moment with, is like, well, we can be friendly with them. It's not a big deal. And then they call him a loser, which is sort of an ongoing thing. I think this is where she pleads with them and says, offer them nothing because they're monsters. Which the vibe that I got was that meant that she knows that they're, actually, I guess I probably tilt this down. She knows that they're going to do terrible things because that's their whole thing. I can't actually see what I'm doing. Hold on. Oh, just my bald head. So she knows that they're going to do some messed up stuff because that's what they do, but they don't seem to be getting that vibe. The way I interpreted it was that it's because she's an orphan or something, and they messed up her planet, because that seems to be everybody's story that she meets along the way, and it's a very common story. But it's revealed later she's freaked out that they're here for like completely different reasons than that. Anyway, number 8, the space Nazis land, and they're wearing leathers and they're wearing hats. I don't know how you don't call them space Nazis. You could call them stormtroopers. You could call them the Empire. If you're gonna do a big epic thing and have it be this close to Star Wars, yeah. But they literally look like space Nazis, whereas at least Star Wars, they had different outfits. They're here, they're looking for rebels. Snaggletooth guy is the boss, and he's got a goofy cane and some priests and stuff. He's looking for rebels, I guess, on the planet. It wasn't clear to me, because clearly these people are so dirt poor they're not going to leave the planet, but he came to the planet looking for them. But he also decides he wants their food supply because they're farmers, and that's kind of their only note. The Big Daddy invites them to the Longhouse to have a conversation while everybody's there. What's-her-name, the main character, sort of sneaks into the back at one point and makes weird eye contact with Snaggletooth guy, which is going to be a real problem later in the story for me. But basically, Big Papa says, we can't help you, good luck, blah, blah, blah. And then Cowardly Guy, who had way bigger of a role than I would have expected, speak up like this, and you think he's going to hit the Cowardly Guy, because, I'm compelled to at this point, but instead he smacks with the bone thing. My brother told me it's some sort of Irish club, like a shaman club kind of thing, but it looks like the femur of someone's leg femur. Kills Big Daddy. Big Daddy's dead, and beats it, hits him a couple extra times just to make sure the point is landed, literally, with the stick. And everybody's freaking out. So now we're on Number 10, which I haven't written yet. Let's see, 10. Oh, this is where you meet like the B team. Meet guards. Meet military guys. Play the creepy young girl thing. There's just a type of character that exists in sort of military stories sometimes who you can't say the word on YouTube, but they're giving off a real kind of vibe, and these guys don't even like try to hide it. It seems to be like their whole thing. But we meet the military guys. The young guy seems to be a good guy. The robot has a whole thing where he's like an honor guard for the king who's dead, blah, blah, blah. But, you know, the king's gone now, and so he's just kind of like holding boxes, and some of the other military guys pick on the robot, and the robot doesn't seem to care. It's like a weird thing, but then the robot has to go wash his face off. So that's where we go for there. So 11, robot and young girl. I have a theory about this young girl, but basically he tells her about this princess who's dead, who was supposed to be like the turning point for the empire or whatever. And she goes, okay, whatever, and then touches his face, and lights on his face light up, and that seems to be a big deal. I certainly took that as either she's the princess or he's convinced she's the princess. I have a theory on why I think she's probably the princess. Anyway, that's number 10. All right. Number 11. That was 11, so 12. Okay. Sad in the den, in the longhouse. And then girl slinks off. Basically, they're trying to figure out how to deal with these brutal military guys, and the cowardly guy who's basically the reason Big Daddy got killed is like, hey, we still deal with them. And the girl gets mad and leaves because obviously that's the wrong answer. And she knows, but she just seems to not want to offer that information. New dad catches leaving. Up until this point, it's very Star Warsy. I think Zack Snyder mentioned Seven Samurai, which is a great story, and it's been told a bunch. So the finding the warriors kind of thing is just straight up Seven Samurai. It's kind of a myth, so I don't think it's nearly as much of a steal as the literal Star Wars references, but it's a very common thing. People go on adventures to go find other people. I don't know why I did a weird accent there. 14. Army guard attack young girl. I'm putting attack in quotes because I think we all know what I'm really saying. And then I'll just say girl rescue plus robot. Main rescue. It's real creepy. It's exactly what we think it is, and then there's a big fight, and there's a couple speed ramps because it's Zack Snyder, and our main character kills all the bad guys except for one, and then the robot who's supposed to kill her kills the other bad guy because he's kind of a good guy because she touched his face and made his face light up. Honestly, that setup payoff I kind of buy more than the rest of it so far. Hold on. I just want to get to the stuff, but I'm just anyway. There we go. Anyway, okay, so that was 14. So 15 is 15 town sees dead soldiers. Have to fight. She literally says have to fight. Even though technically it was her fault, so there's a real argument to be made if they just gave them her, it would have solved everything. You know, maybe not, because the whole thing about the military is you clear out the village or whatever, but also just knowing what we know later, if they did just decide to give up her, that would have been awesome, because she's way more important to the military than anybody expected, which is the whole thing. So it's sort of unfair that she goes, you guys are going to have to fight with me now to protect the land, when really it's like completely her fault, even though obviously she did save the girl from getting attacked. Yeah, so, which was the right thing to do, obviously. Every time you see somebody getting attacked, you intervene, because it's bad news. New daddy gives her gun back. And it's a fancy gun. And she's off to find warriors. So really, I think this goes at the bottom of this. I feel like this goes here and not into the next one. I'm sweating too. 17 is montage of travel. And if this was South Park, you would sing the montage song, because you gotta do a montage. I don't inherently hate montages, especially in something where time or space passes a lot, and it's a good opportunity to show more of the world. But it's I don't know. I wouldn't stay on a montage too long, because it gets tedious and unnecessary pretty quick. Also, there were 4 flashbacks. I forgot to write that down. 4 flashbacks in the. Oh, sorry, that's the campfire. I messed it up. Ignore that. Messed up my own gag. All right, moving on. 18. Campfire talk. She finally tells the guy that she had a charged moment with so long ago, here's why I know these guys are bad and why we're on this adventure right now. And it's way more information than he could have possibly expected, because you just can't, why didn't she tell anybody this? If she knew so much about this, why hold that? And the writing argument is she had to have some priority or some reason to not tell them that outweighed telling them, but we don't know enough about her. We don't really understand her enough, especially her internal life, to know what that would be. It would be as simple as maybe she did have a tryst with the handsome guy and she's trying to hide that lie. And so by not saying her other information, she hides her tryst. Like, there's easy ways to do that, I feel like, but we didn't do that. So 19 is Port City of Providence, Bounty Hunter. Sure looks like Mos Eisley, or whatever it's called, Los Eisley. And the person they were going to meet just got grabbed by probably the coolest contraption in the entire story, which is this box that basically becomes like stand-up handcuffs. It's very cool. The gun aspect of it that's revealed later, I think, is one of the dumbest ideas ever put to film, but the actual like handcuff box thing that they put people in is one of the coolest inventions I've ever seen. I'm fascinated by it. 20, the Cantina, which is straight out of Star Wars. Han Solo's wearing a leather jacket, so is Charlie Hunnam. Just saying. Lost my place. 20, Cantina, pimp scene. So we got a pimp and a brain guy. He's not really a pimp. He's a Jack or a John, but anyway, brain guy. Then there's a bar fight, and then we meet Charlie Hunnam. Charlie Han Solo, basically. You know, if you're inspired by Star Wars, why would you go out from a desert farm into a cantina looking for an outlaw that will get you off the world? It's like I feel like that's a little creatively empty, in my opinion. But maybe that wasn't what he was thinking when Zack Snyder was writing this for the last 25 years. Don't know. It wasn't there. Charlie's ship. And honestly, I don't even remember what the scene was, but he has a ship. He has a goofy ship. It's not totally asymmetrical like the Millennium Falcon, but it's not symmetrical. It's got a weird, it's its own weird character by its own rights, because it like, in a scene later when a bunch of ships blow up, it's literally right next to him, but it's not a problem. All right, moving on. 22. There's a scene with the snaggletooth Nazi guy basically pretending to be Darth Vader. He's getting like hookah onto like orifices on his body, and then he has a weird hugging interaction with like a squid monster. It's super weird. I think it's them just getting more information. I don't even remember what the point of that scene was, other than it was just goofy on the ship creepy stuff that Darth Vader would do. Yeah. 23. Meet slave owner plus the hippogriff. This seems to be strongly influenced by Star Wars Episode 1 and or Avatar, ultimately is what it becomes. But yeah, this slave owner guy has a slave in the back that they might want to use, but there's this out of control like flying lion crow thing first, that there's a problem. So anyway, they're on the planet with the flying lion crow thing. 24, hot slave guy. Weird betting terms. They wanted to buy the hot slave guy, if only just for his hotness, but he's too expensive. And so the slave owner just freely goes, I'll make a bet with you guys. If you win, you get everything. If I win, you're all slaves. What a weird, like, why would he, I don't know. The logic of that whole exchange was weird, but obviously they're like, yeah, of course, like you're offering us not have pay, like of course we're going to do that. And if we, and if it doesn't work out, we'll probably just like burn your place down, like obviously. 25. Riding the hippogriff. Heads together. Bird spikes camera. So obviously, hot shirtless guy is going to tame the hippogriff, and he does. And they put their heads together, which every movie where you have a Native American person bonding with a horse, they put their heads together because that's what it is. So that's great. But then they do the Avatar thing where they fly around a bunch, and at one point the hippogriff literally looks into the camera. He spikes the camera. In a movie that has the least amount of self-awareness of any movie I've seen in years, the animated bird spikes looks into the camera lens. That was Mystery Science Theater 3000 worthy. 26. So, the mining planet. Which looks kind of like where Anakin got high grounded a little bit. Just saying. But they go to the mining planet to get the very first scene where you see the characters in the mining planet. You see the girl in the hat standing in front of them in the elevator, and you're like, oh, so it's her. Like they landed, and then we're there, but she has stuff to do, so she has to fight the spider lady. Played quite well by the chick from one of the Hunger Gameses. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I don't even know where this one would go. I'm just gonna put it here for now. Oh, almost just pulled my microphone off. Okay. So anyway, fight Spider Lady. Spider Lady was in the right. Like, that's what's so weird about this scene is they go through all the trouble of explaining the Spider Lady's point of view and what's happening, and the Spider Lady was like 1000% on the right side of the argument. But for the sake of what we're doing, the Spider Lady has to die so that the lady with lightsabers. My brother kept telling me this is all Warhammer stuff, and I'm like, I don't know what that reference is, but probably. Lightsabers. Anyway, 27, 28. On the ship, more story time. The Princess and Magic. Another flashback. I think it's just one flashback, though. And we find out that the princess is literally magic. And so that will never get addressed again in this movie, but we do have what is ostensibly a magic princess, but she's supposed to be dead. Yeah. Okay. It's an interesting idea. It's a very interesting idea. Is it too many magics? You have space. You have I don't know. That was the whole thing that's so confusing about Star Wars too. Is it's just fantasy in space. It's not strictly sci-fi. It's fantasy in It's fantasy in face. Good job, brain. 29. Gladiator Moon. Meet the General. And if this was Seven Samurai, he'd be like the drunken guy. Does the drunken master exist in Seven Samurai? I forget. But he'd be the drunken guy. 30. Bad guy ship. Kill Maori guy. So this is when they use those giant walking handcuffs things, and you figure out that the drawer in the back of the handcuffs has like a poker thing that you would use to kill cattle, like No Country for Old Men kind of style, and they poked him in the back of the head and killed him, or paralyzed him. My brother and I debated on whether it was paralysis or murder. Anyway, 31. King Levitica, which looks a lot like a Mon Calamari to me. Meet the rebels, brother joins. And he brings some rebel buddies with him, including the little girl with like the eyeshadow. So that was cool. But King Levitica sure looked like a Mon Calamari to me. 32. Lost my place. Space Convoy. There's a charged moment with Charlie Hunnam. And if you followed his career, that's hilarious that there's a charged moment with him, because he always has charged moments in his movies and they don't land. This doesn't either. 32. And Charlie joins. Which was confusing to me that he hadn't joined up until that point. I guess his job was to find other... I'm going to put this here. His whole thing was he was going to help him find other outlaws. But then I just assumed he had joined also because he had also shot the first bad guy that she had to fight in front of him. So I assumed he was already on board, but I guess not. And then there's weird flirting involved. I don't know. Nazis kill King Leviticus. Because of course they do, because why wouldn't they? I think it's implied that the sister and her version of the rebels already left. I think that's the cell. 34. Cloud City. Sorry, floating city in a cloud. Yeah, I mean, Empire's my favorite, so sure, but also, you're just gonna take them all, huh? Cloud City, floating in the clouds. Okay. 35. Blue Guy Betrayal. Charlie Hunnam Betrayal. Yeah, so that was what was so weird is, sure, Charlie Hunnam betrayed him, sure, makes sense. I understand that. The part that was so confusing is, like, why is he putting some people in the standing up handcuffs and some not? Turns out there's bounties on everybody. There's bounties on everybody. So that's why. So he literally had to announce that because everybody else was confused by that too. So, hold on. Stream's current bitrate is lower. It's because of my internet, I'm pretty sure. So, as long as it doesn't drop out, we're all good. 36. Snaggletooth Walk and Talk recognizes her. And so this is the whole thing. It's revealed she is the most famous outlaw in the entire galaxy or the universe or whatever. And a high-ranking officer looked right at her in that village of, you know, let's be real, Nordic people, and found this Algerian woman, I think, right? Isn't she French-Algerian? And is like, oh, that's definitely not her. She has long hair. It's like the Clark Kent taking the glasses off thing. And so now he brags about how she's the most valuable bounty of all because I thought I knew who she was, and now that Charlie Hunnam told me, it's for sure you're the heir apparent of the whole whatever from the flashbacks because she spent she spent from what was it 9 to 18 becoming the greatest warrior of all time, and then sometime after that she left. So yeah, okay, 37. And so everybody's like, great, even though it comes up later that some people are like, are you really that person? She goes, what do you think? Which was to say no, but obviously she is. 37. Gunner, that's what his name is. So we'll just call him Coward. Won't do it. Big battle. So really the person who didn't end up in the handcuffs was the coward guy because he's useless, because he's a farmer, because we've established he is just the most useless person on the world. He ends up starting a big battle and freeing everybody. Yeah, of course he did. I mean, sure. I that actually tracks a lot for me. 38. 1v1 duel with Snaggletooth. And shoves off platform. She shoves him off platform after breaking his staff. And to be fair, when Luke was on the platform in the Cloud City losing, he jumped. So that solves that conundrum. All right. Let's see, 39. Hero speeches. I wrote while getting the chick because the guy had to throw a thing over to bring her buoy back over, but it's just hero speeches. They're saying heroic stuff. I almost lost my lav again. It's around my ankle. There we go. All right. Back at Farm Planet. Sunset and we have the robot, and now he's wearing antlers because he's gone feral, which is kind of hilarious and very much advertised. And I wish we had any more time with the robot because he seems like the most interesting character by a mile. But now we have a feral robot. So why isn't the story just about him? Because he seems awesome, and instead we have, you know, just a sad lady who is rounding up just weirdos. 41, Nazi ship. What's his name is recovered. Snaggletooth recovered. And he makes the Darth Vader call. Where he talks to the big bad, which is her adoptive dad from when she was a military person. So that's the thing. That's the bringing it on to the next thing. Okay, so let's go through this. That took a long time to write down, like a crazy long time. Okay, so character in zone of comfort. We have. Am I blocking anything? Yeah. Let's just get this out of the way. That. There we go. Okay. Ow. Character in zone of comfort. We learn about space and we learn about the Empire or whatever. The Regency or whatever. We have Space Farmer has a charged moment with whose name is Gunner. I remember later. Now we have In the Hut with her adopted dad, who she's been with for 2 years, and he talks about this new hot hunter that she should probably marry and or have kids with because that would make her part of the tribe. It's strongly implied. I'm editorializing a lot here. Then we have the big conversation in the Longhouse, where Big Daddy, who's the bald guy with the cool dreadlock, like braided beard stuff, says, hey, we're talking about fertility because we're farmers, and so it's not just the land, you also need to go get married and have kids. Or married? I don't know if married is a thing in this universe, but definitely having kids. And then she's back in the hut when it's implied that everybody is trying to have kids, and she talks to her new dad again, how she's not interested in the new hunter, or in the hot hunter, and her dad basically says the only way to get full membership is to marry this guy, and she's like, well, then I'll probably just bail. Going into the next chunk, so that was the zone of comfort, so it's established that she's sort of a traveler and that she's been here only recently, but she's kind of just doing her thing. She's happy being a farmer. Then we have the need something. The young girl shows up next time they're farming and goes, I heard noises coming from the hot hunter's place. Was that you? And she goes, it was not. The gag that my brother set up was that it was definitely her, and she's just slamming butt all over the galaxy when she gets a chance. But I think Zack Snyder's trying to play it safe, PG-13 style, and no. And so she goes, no, I'm not interested in the hot hunter. And they look up and there's a big spaceship called a dreadnought in the sky, and she panics and runs in her boots. It's a whole thing. Running in boots is so weird to me. Anyway, the whole community goes back to the Longhouse and talks with Big Daddy about what they should do, because obviously if the military is here, they're going to try to subjugate them, which is 100% true. Then the space Nazis actually showed up. Oh, and at that same thing, the main girl, our girl, stands up and goes, don't do this. I know I'm an outsider, but they're really terrible, so don't give them anything. And they're like, okay, whatever, you're an outsider. Admittedly, if she said any more information about who she was or her relationship to these military people, maybe they would have listened to her. So that's just a weird plot hole that I think needs a narrative explanation. Like, she needed to lie about something else in order to cover that lie. That's what I think, but anyway. Then the Space Nazis land in Space Nazi uniforms. They're looking for rebels, but coincidentally they're also interested in a new food supply once they establish that these people don't interact with rebels because they're bumpkins. Then the Big Daddy takes him to the Longhouse, and basically Gunner, the coward, goes, "Oh no, we have enough grain," after Big Daddy says no. And they kill the main guy, Snaggletooth guy, kills Big Daddy with his fancy stick, and everybody goes, "Oh my God, why would he do that?" To be fair, it was definitely telegraphed that he was going to kill Gunner the coward for acting out, but bad guy's going to be bad, you know? Meet the mystery guys, or the military guys. So basically the main space Nazis leave, but they leave like a group of like basically guards just to mess with them, just to make sure they don't renege on their deal. And you meet the kid, you meet the robot, and you meet the other guys that are all creeps. And they bring the girl, the cute girl, the hot girl, the young girl, I guess cute, hot, young. We'll stick with young. Over for water, and clearly they're giving out the dangerous, scary, treat little girls badly vibe. Yeah, they also pick on the robot, so it's established they're not friendly with the robot either, but that's sort of a lesser thing. The robot, after getting mud all over him, has to go wash up, and the little girl, the young girl that they were picking on, goes and hangs out with him. It's the same girl, right? I think it's the same girl. And he tells her about the princess and how she was great or whatever, and that his king and queen are dead, so he doesn't have a job anymore. And she touches his face and it lights up, and that's an important moment because I would argue the robot is the most important character in the story by a mile. Anyway, the whole group is in the big house trying to figure out what to do, and they're like, well, we're just gonna have to deal with these people and be nice because, you know, the way to tyrants' hearts is being nice. And obviously our girl slinks off because she's like, well, that's not gonna work. Moving on. Her new dad catches her in their place packing and is like, you know, 2 years ago, blah, 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 I gave you a chance. You were going to be part of this whole thing. And she's like, well, I'm going to leave. And he goes, well, you know, you could find warriors, or one of them says it, I forget. You could find warriors to protect us. Even though there's a giant spaceship, like literally bigger than the dimensions of their entire community in space bearing down on them. So the logic of that is, I don't know. I would like some more information there. Maybe. Anyway, the army guys attack the young girl at night. I'm using attack, but they're doing exactly what you think they're going to do to this young girl. And it's bad. The youngest guy protests because he seems to be a good person. But all the army guys except for the young guy prove to be as despicable as you think they are. And so our girl shows up and goes, leave them alone. And then Zack Snyder fights them all to defeat, except for the main guy. Then the robot wanders in and picks up a gun, and the main guy says, you need to shoot her. And he very quickly shoots the bad guy, which is a thing he's not supposed to be able to do because he's supposed to work for the king, blah, blah, blah. That was, again, the robot is by far the most interesting character in this story, like by a mile. So she's good now. She's killed all the bad guys with the help of the robot, who sort of just wanders, like runs off. He can run better than everybody else also, which is crazy. But they saved the young girl. The town comes in and sees all the dead soldiers, and our girl mutters that they're going to have to fight now. Again, knowing what we'll know later on who she is, it's completely her fault. I just would like for that lie that she's basically telling, although she seems to be genuine about it, the lie that they're going to have to fight because of what she did to these guys. Knowing what we know later, they could have just turned her in and probably would have been forgiven. I mean, the military, maybe not, because in the military complex likes to burn down villages, but it seems like that was a pretty decent option. Anyway, as she's leaving, the new dad gives her her fancy gun back that sure looks like military gun stuff, and she's off to find other warriors now. And she's going to take Gunner because he's the only lead to find rebels or warriors or whatever. And also, he's the only other person in this town that she seems to actually have a real connection with at all. Moving on. We're going to search. We have the montage of them traveling, and like I said earlier, honestly, this is in sci-fi. Montages annoy the crap out of me, and they're useful for passing time or passing distance. And in sci-fi, I do kind of feel that they're more necessary than other genres because it's an opportunity to show more of the universe, more of the uniqueness of the world, although they're on the desert planet, so it kind of did the opposite. But they travel. And then they make camp her and Gunner, and they have a chat, and we have 4 flashbacks to explain who she is. 4 flashbacks. 4 flashbacks. And we see she has like shaved head with like a flat top on top, and she got taken as a child by a commander who's obviously going to be the main commander of the entire story. He's the main big bad guy, and she gets mentored into this incredible warrior. That's the whole thing. It took 4 flashbacks to explain that. She was taken when she was 9. From 9 to 18, she rose up through the ranks to become a commander, and then sometime after 18 and now, and again, this woman in real life is in her 30s, so reasonably like another 10 or 15 years, something happened, and at some point the king and the queen died at some point, and then she disappears and crash lands, and it's been 2 years since the crash landing. I don't know, but that's as much as we're going to get about that ever. But it took 4 flashbacks, and the way she editorializes the flashbacks, it's not clear how much our guy Gunner actually learns, because we see it for what it is, but she's obviously not showing him that. I don't know. That seems like undercooked. They end up at the port city of Providence, which sure looks like Mos Eisley Spaceport. And they run into, they try to find their contact, and he's caught by a bounty hunter. And then you find the coolest walking robot handcuffs you've ever seen. So that's the end of him. So they're screwed. So they're going to wander into a cantina and out loud wonder about rebellion and rebels and specific names of people, just to see if anybody cares. Interesting strategy. Every time it happens in Star Trek, they get immediately arrested or kidnapped. But in this, they just sort of end up in a weird argument. There's a bar fight after talking to the brain guy, and you meet Charlie Hunnam in a leather jacket giving off a real, blonde Han Solo vibe. Yeah, and he says, "I'll do it," and takes her to his ship, because he has a ship, because why wouldn't he have a ship? Of course he does. He's not Han Solo. He's definitely not Han Solo. Fine. Basically, when the agreement on the ship was, he's like, let's go on an adventure and find some guys. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, Snaggletooth is on his ship, giving off a real Darth Vader vibe, where he's doing hookah all over his body, and then has like a weird, I don't know if this octopus thing is a pet or if it's medicinal, but he has a weird thing with an octopus thing on his ship. Real Darth Vader vibes. Then the gang, the ragtag group, lands at a planet with a slave owner and a hippogriff out back behaving badly. They're looking for Hot Slave Guy. So they meet Hot Slave Guy, and he's a slave, and they can't afford to pay for him. But for some reason, the slave owner's like, I like a bet. If you win, you can have everything, and if I win, you're all slaves. And they were like, great. Instead of money, just like every native in every white savior story, they put their heads together and they have an out-of-world connection to each other, and then they avatar fly for like 5 minutes. Or at one point, the bird spikes the camera in a movie that is completely devoid of any self-awareness. An animated bird, a bird that does not exist in this reality or any other, looks down somebody animated this to look down the barrel of the camera. That's crazy to me, but it is what it is. He did it, they're all safe, blah, blah, blah. Ironically, when they leave, the bird kills the slave owner, because of course he did, and then the hot guy who's going to be shirtless for the entire rest of the story goes, good girl or something, whatever, that's fine. Then they go to the mining planet, and the mining planet looks a lot like where Anakin Skywalker lost his limbs because of the high ground. I'm repeating myself, but I'm also doing this for the edit. Anyway, they end up in the mining planet. It looks like... Wait for the dog to stop barking. They go to the mining planet. It looks like the place where Anakin lost his limbs because he didn't have the high ground. It is what it is. Some planets are like that, I suppose. They end up meeting the fighting lady who has lightsabers right away. But before they do, before they can hang out with her, she has to fight the spider lady, who is given enough time. The spider lady is able to explain her case, and she has a rock solid case for being the way she is, and yet she's still murdered because logic means nothing. But Spider Lady was right. Honestly, between Lightsaber Lady and Spider Lady, if I was putting together a ragtag crew of good people, I probably would have gone with Spider Lady, because she seems awesome. Anyway, They're back on the ship. It's another flashback where our girl is telling Gunnar the Coward. Another thing is at some point she was such a good warrior that she became the personal guard of the princess, and she talks about, and she way over summarizes it because we see the princess literally bring a dead bird back to life, but the way it's editorialized, she says there's been on more than one occasion the princess has done crazy things. Okay, sure. Anyway, moving on. We go to the Gladiator Moon to meet the general, who's an alcoholic and he's passed out in the corner. I think that's right out of Seven Samurai, but it's also right out of everything else. I think Magnificent Seven, which is just a Western version of that, did the same thing. Yeah, he's the general, and it's our guy who's literally in Gladiator. So, you know. Anyway, the bad guys kill the Maori guy who was the spy that they were supposed to find on the other planet. I think the only reason this scene exists is to show off that the walking handcuffs robot has like a gun in the back, and you can put it in the back of somebody's head and sort of poke them like you do with a cow. You know, no young men, no time for young men, or whatever the hell that movie's called. Anyway, No Country for Old Men. The poking cattle thing. Anyway, then they meet King Levitica, who sure looks like a Mon Calamari to me, but hey, you know, some aliens are fish. Then the rebels show up, and she pleads with the rebels, and the brother rebel joins, and a couple other of the rebels' friends join, and then the girl with the rest of the rebels leave. So now they have a couple ships. So they do a space convoy where a bunch of ships, and then their big goofy ship that Charlie Hunnam drives is on its way back, and that's when Charlie Hunnam and her have a charged moment where he basically says, I've thought about it, and you're making me a better person, you know, sexual undertones, and I'm joining your crew, which was weird to me because I just assumed based on the fact that he was helping her go find everybody that he was already on the crew, but what are you going to do? So anyway, he joins, blah, 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 foreshadowing. The Nazis are on the planet with King Leviticus, and they kill him, but the rebels don't seem to be there. Sure. Now the rebels, or our gang goes to the Cloud City. It's a city in the clouds. It's literally a cloud city. Where has been a movie where there's a cloud city? I don't know. I wonder if there's going to be a person who gets brutalized and then thrown off the cloud city. I wonder if that's going to happen. Yes. Excuse me. Blue Guy and Charlie Hunnam betray them on the dock of the Cloud City and so the handcuff things pop out and grab a bunch of people and explains how every one of these people they found have bounties on them. And so that's explained because it was really unclear to me, even the second time I watched it, like why Charlie Hunnam was doing this. He's a bounty hunter. Where are bounty hunters from? Not Star Wars. Snaggletooth shows up and does a walk and talk where he's like, I knew I recognized you in a village full of all these white Aryan people who farm, and you're, very dark skinned with dark hair and super, super hot. So how would I have been able to tell you out of the crowd? Yeah, you're the daughter of the like warlord. You're the most famous outlaw in the history of the world. Anyway, the Snaggletooth guy tries to make Gunnar, our coward guy, I guess paralyze people. It was unclear whether the gun thing in the back of the handcuff robot paralyzes them or kills them, but he decides not to do it and instead pegs Charlie Hunnam with it, which is pretty awesome, and then frees everybody, and there's a big battle. Ultimately, our girl and Snaggletooth end up on a 1v1 duel, isolated, after a bunch of ships shoot a bunch of other ships, but the only ship that doesn't get shot is Charlie Hunnam's ship. I guess it makes sense now because he had a deal, but I don't know. Anyway, she duels with him, and then she breaks his staff, which is such a big deal, and then shoves him off the platform. To be fair, Luke jumped off the platform after he got his arm sliced, so there you go. And then we have heroes talking about speeches on this burning platform, how it's time to blah, blah, blah. And then they go back to the farm planet, and you see them all ride the horses with the CGI faces into the sunset, and you see the feral robot wearing antlers now, sort of being crazy, and he has a staff. It's kind of awesome. And then back at the ranch on the Nazi ship, they recovered Snaggletooth guy. He's in bad shape, but they're going to plug him in because he's an android, kind of. And instead of like, reviving him, they do like a Darth Vader call where he has to go talk to the boss, which is her daddy mentor person, and then he comes back and he's barely alive, and that's that. There you go. That's the movie. Okay, so let's try to. Okay. Person in the zone of comfort. I think the person in the zone of comfort is fine, except the way stuff is. So you need, go, search, find, take, return, change. Let me just think about this. I think I can also do one of these. Let's put this down here. There we go. It's out of the way. Awesome. So, zone of comfort, want something, enter to a new place, adapt to the new place, find what they were looking for, pay the price for what they were looking for, get back to where they wanted to start from, and now they're capable of change, having learned their lesson. Zone of comfort is her being a space farmer. Excuse me. I just don't feel like we have enough information about her, but for the sake of we're going to learn more later, benefit of the doubt, I'm more or less okay with this, although there's like a whole lot of harping about like fertility and getting married and all this stuff, which does not come up again in the rest of the story. So that's sort of, I feel like that was just, it set us up for like the push and pull between being a married person and having a quiet life versus going on an adventure. But there was no push and pull because she had made it like frighteningly clear that she was not interested in being married. She was only there for the quietness, and so as soon as the quietness went away, which is when the ship shows up, she was going to leave. So honestly, I probably would have changed the stuff around a little bit in the first chunk, the zone of comfort, just because the marriage, where's the marriage stuff going to? It gets super harped upon, and obviously she's not having it. So either she needs to be much more interested in marriage. Maybe she is interested in this hunter guy, but she realizes the call to action to go off and fight space war instead. Because then later we see I don't think she's married, but she's in love with a guy who dies on the battlefield. Or maybe she is married at like 18. So I don't know. There's something about marriage happening in the first thing that's weird, but also the fact that she's concealing who she is to the wrong people. Like, I feel like the wrong people she's hiding from, and then the other wrong people she's obviously who she is to. So there's something weird in the first one, and then want something. We're still on the planet, which I guess is fine because it's still technically Act 1, but like we're stuck on the planet. Something bad happens, the Dreadnought shows up. They argue about grain for a very long time. I don't remember Luke arguing about moisture farming as long as this, but who knows? It does seem like it took a long time on that Tatooine planet on episode 4 anyway. Space Nazis come and do their whole space Nazi thing, but she's not even in the second thing. So maybe that's the problem, is the second thing, she's passive. She's active in the first thing when the Dreadnought shows up because she runs away. So she's actively running. And then we have Longhouse, Space Nazis, Longhouse, and then the last scene is where she shows up. So there's 3 whole scenes where she's just like literally standing in the back of the room. If this is her story, why is she standing in the back of the room? She's passive. I think that's where we're having so much trouble in the second strip, is if it's so important that we understand her point of view and her choices, we can't have her exist in the back of the room. If she's in the back of the room, we need to be looking from the back of the room to the conversation on the other side of the room, where the camera's in the wrong space, like mentally, is I think the issue. Because obviously she knows these, like there's no new information to her about these space Nazis, but we also don't have any information of her. Like, so the only thing that we're getting is new information about space Nazis to us. She's not doing anything. So these 3 in the middle on the second row, I think that needs work. That she needs to be doing something. She basically, this entire segment, number B, she's just packing to leave. That's the whole thing. And then reluctantly, she gets forced to protect the young girl, who's her friend kind of, from getting attacked, or the other word. And the robot also helps, so it's not even just her. But it makes sense that the robot would be in the back because the robot is not a main character. Although I would still argue the robot is the main character of the whole story and should have shown up in the first part. But then it literally is Star Wars because the robots are the first thing you see in Star Wars. I don't know. The second segment, yeah, she just packing is not gonna work. She either needs to leave or she needs to change their minds. We need to understand from her point of view stuff. This would be where if the wedding, marriage stuff, having kids stuff is so important in the first segment, this is where that pays off. And so if we're setting up that either she wants to marry the hot guy who can hunt, or she doesn't want to marry the hot guy and hunt and marry Gunnar the coward, this is where that pays off, where she goes, as much as I would like to, I have to go to war now, or he gets killed or something else, and then forces her to go to war. But we don't have any of that. As a matter of fact, the good hunter guy, he's hanging out. He's cool. When they come back at the end of the movie, I think he's there. So he's basically Liam Hemsworth, Hunger Games-ish. Anyway, so I think that's what's wrong with that, is there's no symmetry there. They're setting up something that doesn't get paid off, so we need to set something up more correctly and then have it pay off here and have the escalation go to on the adventure now. That's where we're going to go, which is C. Robot and the young girl lights up. I'm totally wrong. She doesn't do anything in this because the fighting the bad guys is way over here. So she literally doesn't do anything for these scenes. So from card 7 to card have to fight. So from card 7 to card 13, she's literally just hiding and packing. So that's a disaster. It's nice that we learn about the robot and the young girl, because again, the robot is the most important, interesting character in the whole thing. People are sad in the longhouse because their boss is dead. Yeah. So again, it's sort of like an ensemble of people. Maybe that's the issue, is it starts off a singular character seems to be the focus of the story, where people telling her stuff that she's clearly not interested in. The second column is, again, people telling her stuff and she disagreeing with them, but we have sort of a her versus the ensemble. And then by now we just have the ensemble. Like, she's not even there. She's off packing, and it's all of a sudden the story seems to be about the ensemble, but it's not. The ensemble is literally just a bunch of scared farmers. They're not main characters. And so the fact that, like, Gunnar is there technically, but he doesn't represent the ensemble. So that maybe there's a focus problem here, where obviously she's off doing something. We don't know what it is. That's annoying, but in a large multi-character ensemble story, that's not a deal breaker. You just got to go to the next character. But Gunnar's a freaking wallflower too. Gunnar just sits there. So I guess that's a problem, is if she's not going to do anything in B and C, which she should, I feel like that's the only way it's going to make sense. We have the robot, which is useful, but he ends up not being part of the ensemble because that's obviously going to be the next movie. So that's useless for our purposes. So Gunnar needs to be the point of view of the ensemble, but he also doesn't do anything. So either she needs to be doing something in B and C, or Gunnar needs to be doing something in B and C that affects everything. And then we have, 13, 14, the guys attack the young girl, and she saves the young girl and kills all the bad guys, and the robot does too. Honestly, the setup payoff for the robot is tight. Like, if you wanted this to be like a 15-minute short film, just all the robot scenes, that's your movie. Satisfying, beginning, middle, end. It has a you, it has a need, it has a go, it has an adapt. I mean, honestly, it's crazy. So good job on writing robots, I guess. They attack the girl, and then the town shows up and she says, have to fight. But again, she made that decision when she cornered the guys attacking the girl. So that moment came like a whole scene too late. Like, honestly, yeah, I feel like, honestly, those beats need to switch. She needs to decide that everybody has to fight, and then she saves the girl. And yeah, anyway. New dad gives her gun back. Sure, but again, we have this budding relationship that we're learning about her and her new dad, which will never get addressed again because her new dad is not part of the story. So we just have too many unnecessary. It's unfocused. There's a bunch of non-consequential characters in the first chunk that aren't in the rest of it because obviously, yeah. And the Star Wars solution is they all get barbecued. But obviously, I'm glad. I honestly, when they were coming back at the end into the sunset, I thought the sunset was the burning town, just because that was the vibe I was getting, which would have been very Star Warsy. But that's why Luke went on to the thing. He had no home to come back to. She literally comes back to the home. Anyway, we're going to search. We got the montage travel with Gunnar. Again, even though they established chemistry with Gunnar at the beginning, she seems to have nothing to say to him on this travel. And then she gives him 4 flashbacks, which explain somewhere between enough and too much information for the rest of the story. But again, he's the only one that learns this information other than us. And so he's learning the escalation of who she actually is and what that actually meant, and should be probably pretty pissed that she didn't tell everybody this like 2 days ago when his daddy got murdered and they're getting subjugated by the military, because she would have known all this stuff. Anyway, they go to the port city of Providence. It's, yeah, sure, but again, this actually might be when they realize the bounty hunter caught that guy. That actually seems like a real scene where they show up and they go, oh crap, things have changed. Now they're both on the same page because they went from having a plan to not having a plan. And then they go to the cantina, and it's obviously, you get a little bit of information, then you get a big fight, and then at the end of the thing, they even quip out loud, which I found to be, maybe that was the moment of self-awareness, where he goes, that's the plan, and she goes, that's the plan. It's like, if you're going to work together, maybe be on the same page with the whole plan. But again, that could be a character explanation. We've established that she's guarded and jaded and doesn't relay information, but he also doesn't press her on anything. And so after that moment where he goes, that's the plan, and she goes, that's the plan, that's his into all the other times where she's not telling him something, for him to go, you need to tell me what's going on because we're a team, we're a partnership. And he doesn't do that because he has no agency in this story. He's literally the coward of the story. But even then, the coward in a critical moment of her failing would have been like, what do you need me to do, if she's the planning person? Okay, moving on. Cantina, Charlie Hunnam's ship, blah, 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 sure. Then they go to a bunch of places. I have nothing nice to say about all these places, hopping around, finding people, because it's basically the same as the montage, and it kind of plays out the same way. Yeah, it's the part of the, Save the Cat calls it fun and games. It's a hard part of the story because it's the part that makes the trailer usually, other than the finale stuff that makes the trailer. But it's also, because it's so amorphous and, it's hard, it's the hard part of stuff because it's not necessarily clear what you're striving for. In this case, it's literally going, we need a person, let's go find a person. We need a person, let's go find a person. Also, they didn't have anybody say no, which is very confusing to me. And they didn't have anybody that they wanted and they couldn't get, and they got somebody else. We kind of get that at the end because the brother of the rebels dies, so we kind of have that at the end, but even then, I don't know. Yeah, it's like ABC. And so there's nothing, yes, plot happens, but we don't even really get character interactions because we're just learning about each character. Basically, each character gets to hold the mic and go, here's me, here's what I'm doing. Okay, my time's over, here's the mic back. Like, it's not an ensemble, there's no chemistry, there's no character interaction, there's no characters with overlapping ideals other than maybe Charlie Hunnam's character and her. Because obviously Gunnar is just, he's good with whatever she's doing, so that doesn't help. The rest of the characters seem to too, and the only person that doesn't is Charlie Hunnam, but his character is also agreeing with her, and it's revealed later that's because it was all part of his, devious plan to sell her out. There's no conflict, there's no negative interaction. Everybody's on the same page. We need you for this. I don't know. Okay, I'll do it. That's the thing. That's where TV, I feel like, does a better job than movies sometimes. Is if the ask is, we need this, or can you do this, that's when you cut to commercial. That's when you cut to something else. You come back and they will either answer the demand, or they will have we're on our way because they have answered the demand. If you have the setup and the payoff of something big, especially plot-wise, in the same scene, what's the point of having an additional, like, what's the point? What are we doing here? Like, and it's fine to have that occasionally, because some people, you just go, hey, can you do this for me? And they go, yeah. But a lot of times they don't. So to have it happen, let's see, 1, 2 with the hippogriff guy, 3 with the spider lady, and so 3. It happens 3 times in a row. It happens almost a third of the movie, where somebody goes, can you do this for me? And then they go, hold on. Okay, yeah, I've decided yes. I think the only time where it's not directly in the same exact scene is the spider lady, because she has to first fight the spider lady thing, the Jedi. I don't know. So you can, yeah. Don't say, will you hold my baby? And then the very next scene is, the end of that scene is, okay, now I'm holding the baby. Now I've holded the baby. Now I'm holding the baby. Like, you can't, you got to go, will you hold my baby? Cut to something else, because there's tension there. There's a lot of people are like, I'm not touching your baby. What are you talking about? Your baby's covered in poo. You're going across the galaxy. What is on your baby? And then the next scene, you got baby poo all over your face, and you're holding the baby. Like, that's the bit. That's the comedy version. That's also the dramatic version. So the find stuff I find annoying. And honestly, if we're doing find, the spider lady is fine. The princess is the more information find, talking about the princess. We're finding the gladiator guy, who immediately says yes. I realize I'm probably blocking it out. We'll have to hide this again. There we go. Bad guys kill Maori guy. That's probably still part of find. King Levitica. Yeah, so the whole, there's all of this is fine. So we actually have to, so let's just do this. Let's put these back. We'll have to move the, we'll have to move where this thing takes place. We're taking too long on find, basically. Like, if this is exactly the movie, we're taking too long on find. That's really what it is. So where does take place? It's probably killing King Levitica, right? So there. So there's the, maybe take, maybe, yeah, meet the brother, space convoy. So there we go. So there's, the end of find is here, and then we have take. So let's just move this up. We have the fight spider lady, we have the gladiator, bad guys. So there's a problem too. We either have too many people, or honestly, I think it's a plotting issue. Nothing is, we're stuck. We have, if we're gonna find all these people, other things need to be happening more so than they are, because we basically just have, they take a step forward, the bad guys take a step forward. They take a step forward, the bad guys are gonna take 2 steps and catch up. So nothing is, like, we're not having escalation. So we should have maybe like a near miss here, even nearer miss here with the bad guys catching them, and then the bad guys catch them. Like, that's how it should be. It should be catching up, a near miss, and now the bad guys have caught them. But instead we have, they're on their adventure, and the bad guys are just like watching them through the binoculars kind of thing. But there's no tension there, there's no escalation there, unless the bad guys have Jeopardy 2, which they don't. Because they could do this all day. They have infinite resources. They're not gonna run out of fuel or whatever. And then we have take. Take, I don't know, maybe, so you have to pay the price. Well, the price is the betrayal, Snyder to the Recognizer, the big battle, 1v1 duel. So honestly, the return, so we just don't have a last act, really, is what it is. We don't have a last segment of beats, because that's your take, because this middle segment was too long. And so they return, they go back to the farm planet and the Nazi ship. So we just don't have a last chunk. We don't see how they're capable of change. We see it in the trailer for the next movie. We see them getting guns together, which again is a weird ask for me, because they're looking up and seeing a giant ship. So how are they going to pew pew a giant ship like that? But sure, for the sake of sci-fi, sure. We just don't have a last segment. Yeah, so that's really what it is. It's man, this whole movie is just all over the place. All right, so we have in segment A, we're talking about too much of the wrong stuff, and we're not seeing enough of our main girl. That's really what it is. In section B, we're not paying off the stuff we talked about in section A because the main girl is ostensibly not in it. In section C, well, actually, I'm kind of cool with section C for the most part. Honestly, yeah. Section D is all the traveling. It's boring, but sure. I'm not super happy about the 4 flashbacks in the same conversation, but hey, whatever. Section C and D are actually in pretty good shape. Section E is both too big and also like undermining the pacing of everything because they're just going, we need this, we're getting this. We need this, we're getting this. We need this, we're getting this. There's no escalation. There's no character moments. There's no overlap. There's no setbacks. They're literally getting what they want. This was a problem I had with, which Star Wars is it The Last Jedi? Is it the one where they're just driving in a straight line for the entire Last Jedi? Is that what it was? And so Finn and whatever her name is, Finn and Rose go off on like a side quest and they go, we need this, therefore this, we need this, therefore this, we need this, therefore this. But again, since everybody else is driving in a straight line, there's no jeopardy there because no matter what they do, we need this, therefore this. Everybody else is going in a straight line, so you just have to look and see where they're gonna be and just be there. It's the kind of same thing here. They're just set up, payoff, set up, payoff, set up, payoff. There's no escalations, there's no reversals, and even if you don't have that, which is fine, character moments. One of the stronger things about the original Marvel team up stuff before the recent stuff is Thor was not cool with certain people. Mark Ruffalo's character was not cool with certain people. Tony Stark was a dick. Like there were interactions that would escalate. It became Iron Man versus Captain America. That's what Civil War was about. Is Iron Man has his point of view on things and Captain America has his point of view on things, and they're incompatible. And so as soon as somebody pushes one of them one direction, the other person has to interfere, interact, counterattack. There's none of that. Everybody seems cool. If anything, they all seem like roommates. It's super weird. So these people need to, if they're not, like having outside forces be a problem, because clearly not, they all succeed at absolutely everything they're doing. Inside forces, the super hot guy who has no shirt is gonna have to have beef with somebody. Maybe the sword lady, because he's super hot and he's like, you're gonna burn me. Like if you turn on your sword by accident, I don't have anything to protect my giant abs from getting absolutely torched. Like what the hell? Can you put those away, please? Like there needs to be. That was like schlocky 90s stand-up comedy. But my point is, there's no incongruity. There's no problem. Part of it is our main characters, the two, our girl and then Gunnar, are stoic and quiet and passive, which is a nightmare. But even if that was the case, somebody in the group is going to be loud and try to take control, and that's going to be a problem. If you have a quiet, stoic leader, you're going to have somebody who thinks they know better step up because they see a void in the power, they see a power vacuum, they're going to have to interfere. We don't have that. We don't have any of that. So there needs to be conflict here because, again, they already left King Levitica when he gets killed by the space Nazis, so that ostensibly doesn't affect them. Eventually, they're going to get the news and be like, "Oh, bad, all sad. It was all of our faults," but it doesn't affect them. They're not going back to King Levitica. They don't have a problem there. So basically, that was just like a consequence for us. Yeah. In addition to that, the betrayal. Yes, it's a betrayal, but the good guys didn't really lose anything. I mean, obviously the brother from the rebels died and a bunch of the rebels got killed, so they lost a bunch of rebels, but also they only had the rebels for like a scene and a half, so we don't even know anything about the rebels. We don't know what most of their faces look like at this point. There's nothing there. So there was really nothing lost. They were, gathering warriors. They had a standoff and they won ostensibly, except they lost the one rebel guy and therefore his rebel friends, who we don't have any information about them anyway. So they like ostensibly won a battle in a way that you're not supposed to win at this point. Like, you can't just get the band together and have them work. Even if you're going on a non-American, like a non-Western storytelling motif, instead of doing, Joseph Campbell, The Hero's Journey, even if you're not doing that, if you do the anime structure, friend's journey, fight, failure, learning. You gotta fail before you can learn. There's no failing here. They didn't have a problem. She ostensibly beat the guy with a stick, with his own stick. She beat him with his own stick within an inch of his life. What is there to learn from that? There's nothing to learn from that. And then they go back and they're like, well, now it's time to buckle down. What is, like, how to fix this? They need to completely redo the first chunk, because it needs to not be about getting married or being part of the society, because she's established that she's not part of the society and she's not interested in being part of the society. It seems like the only part of the society in the first chunk that she likes is farming. She can do that anywhere. That's not necessary. Second thing needs to pay off the first thing that's already broken. The third thing I think is kind of fine, except for the attacking of the girl is really on the nose, but I'd rather have that than not, because it gives people something to do, and it's a good way to differentiate bad guys from good guys, even though, you don't have to attack a girl to prove you're a bad guy. You just don't, but it's better to have it than not. The search stuff is very mundane to me, but that's fine. The find stuff is an absolute disaster and completely undermines the thing. And I think the bulk of why this movie feels and is so long is in this search stuff, because we're seeing new things, which is exciting, because sci-fi, it's nice to see new things and interpret things and compare the way things are there versus the way our society, like all that kind of stuff is fun, but we don't really have that. We're just meeting individuals and they're saying like one catchphrase and then they're absolutely dominating. So there's no conflict there. There's basically no plot. There's no tension. There's no narrative thrust. It's just, we're just in stale air for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 scenes. We're in stale air for 30 plus minutes. I think it's closer to like 40. That's crazy. And then we have the take, which has consequences. Yeah, okay. I mean, yes, this stuff is paying off stuff that was set up earlier. I feel some kind of way about the fact that they absolutely dominate in the big showdown, where usually, the take or right before the take is the big failure in a movie. Like the low point should be like right here. So King Levitica meets the rebels. That should be a low point. Maybe the rebels look at him and go, a bunch of farmers and a crazy girl who's definitely not the most famous outlaw in the entire history of the universe. Hard pass, you guys suck. That could be good. That could be devastating, because now they have nowhere to go. If the rebels say, yeah, kick rocks, now they don't have any, now they really have nothing, because their whole thing was we need to get a band together, but also we need rebels. So if the rebels bail on them, then that's useful, because now what are they going to do? They're going to have to pull themselves up by their bootstraps and figure some shit out. But instead, half the rebels are like, sure, yeah, we'd love to. Great. Then the take so that was take. I lost my place. Return. So everything after take is everything below take. So everything in take, paying the price. They're not paying a price here. They're gifted a Charlie Hunnam who's a liar. We don't know that King Leviticus was killed, so that means nothing. They show up at the Cloud City because they still need another guy, but it turns out that it's the betrayal that Charlie Hunnam was setting him up for. So honestly, that was the low point. But again, it's not a low point, because they go from having a low point to having the most ostensibly successful battle in the history of people stumbling around on a dock. Like, it's crazy. So, and then the return, we have hero speeches, but we don't have a change. So even if we say back on the farm planet and we see the feral robot and that kind of stuff, and these are the changes, they've not done anything. She's nothing about who she is at this point is a difference or a return to who she was at the beginning, other than the fact that she's going to be a farmer again, but she's not. She's going to be a warrior again, so she's even not doing that. In addition to that, we have a feral robot. Awesome, love it. It's the best. And then we have a Nazi ship, which is ostensibly a post-credit scene for all intents and purposes. There's no change here. Nothing's changed. So I'd say the proportion of this story that is compatible with even just the story wheel, which is just a basic Western storytelling order of events, honestly, because there's no chemistry, there's no character interaction, so we don't have any of the actual story stuff. Story isn't things happening. Story is how characters feel about things happening. She doesn't feel shit. And most of them seem to not. The hot guy that's wearing a shirt seems to have the most emotions, and his emotions are happy and impressed. Yeah, so having said that, can we call this the first half of a longer story so that you goes all the way to here, meet the bad guys, maybe? Okay, we can do that. So the answer to, can this story be fixed easily? There's so much to fix. I don't even know where I would start. To take this movie and just recut it to make it work, I don't think it's possible. I really don't, even though you could definitely easily cut out 30 plus minutes of the story. I don't know where you would cut, because I just honestly don't. But for the sake of the counter argument of this is the first half of a larger story. All right, sure. Let's try to make that work. I think it's going to be even less compatible because it kind of fit more than it didn't. Person in his own comfort. So let's see, robot and young girl. So that's the zone of comfort. So really the end of the zone of comfort is attacking the girl, right? Because that's when things really escalate in a way that you can't go back to. So let's call attacking the girl be the thing that sets things off. B, right? Needs. You need something. You need to protect people in your farm, basically. Attacking the girl. Town sees it. Dad says, here's your gun back. And so now she has to go on a travel because the thing she needs isn't here. Sure, I could buy that. Go, I guess, would be hanging out with Charlie Hunnam. I would buy that. I would buy Charlie Hunnam being the go part, because now you're going on the adventure. So now we have all this adventure and search. So where does search happen? Space convoy, hurt. I guess. I mean, where do you adapt to stuff? The betrayal. So right here. So you could do the search here and here and here. So now you're adapting to it because there's a betrayal, and now you have to fight, and then they come back and they have speed. Like, even if you just look at it, clearly the let's go find a bunch of warriors stuff, because it doesn't affect anything other than just getting more characters. There's no additional escalations, there's no reversals, there's no changes. It's still stagnant, and it's still way too big for the rest of it. If anything, the need is too small, but you could even just, if you just put small. Yeah, so no, I don't think if you call the part one of a two-part story the first half of a Western story, I don't think so. I just don't think so. There's too much dead air, too much dead time finding people on fancy planets, because there's no consequences, and there's no escalations, there's no setbacks, there's no problems. It's for a ragtag group of losers who are farmers who are promising money but don't have any money, it seems like they got deep pockets, because every single time they have anything that they're up against, it's paid for. It's like God will provide kind of crap. There's nothing up against what they're doing at all. So that's what it is. That God, it's frustrating because, like, Don't Worry Darling. Let me just go to this.